Hey guys, it's HDL. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the core concepts related to general movement. Now, this may seem elementary, but it's really important to get these nailed down because this is really where the bulk of the speedrunning and optimization comes into play, and a lot of things are not immediately obvious. So the first thing I want to talk about is acceleration. Um, there's a few ways to do it. The most basic one is obviously just hold forward. So if you look on the bottom left, it'll say plus 12, and then 24, 36, etc. So our acceleration is 12 subpixels per frame. If we keep holding forward, it will cap out at 1536. This is obviously just on flat ground and without any kind of external factors. When game objects and slopes come into play, this number will increase. But for now, every character follows this rule. 1536 is the top speed. If we stop holding forward, it'll go down to 1524, 12, 1500. So you can see our deceleration is actually the exact same interval as the acceleration. And we can speed this up by braking. Now, braking doesn't necessarily refer to the animation that plays. That animation is it's really just visual feedback for when you brake while going above a certain speed. But you don't actually have to be going very fast to brake at all. Just hold the opposite direction that you're moving in, and the speed will actually decrease by 128 subpixels per frame instead of 12. So that's actually a pretty big increase right there. And we get the animation because we were going fast enough. The next way to accelerate is by taking advantage of that property of braking, which is just hold a direction. In this case, I'm holding left. And then for the next frame, I'm going to hold right. And that'll actually increase our speed in the other direction by 128. So the result is pressing left, right, or right, left really fast is actually faster than just holding forward. Now, this isn't really used too much in this game, primarily because the last way to accelerate is much better. Simply jump. And as you can see on the bottom left, it'll say plus 24. That's double the acceleration of just moving on the ground normally. Even with air drag, which I'll touch on later, this is faster than simply holding forward. The actual jump height does not matter. You can just tap jump and hold forward and you'll accelerate faster than just holding forward on the ground. And as you might suspect, combining these methods of acceleration actually gives you a slightly faster method. So hold one direction for one frame and then jump in the other direction the next frame. And that's actually very slightly faster. But it's really not worth it because doing it that precisely in real time is really difficult. So just go for the jump. Um, if we touch in-game objects like this right here, it'll actually increase our speed to a fixed value. In this case, it's 4096, which actually happens to be the speed cap to rolling. Rolling, I'm going to touch on a bit later. But for now, just know that certain external factors can increase your speed beyond your normal top speed. When you come to a slope like this, angles come into play, and with angles, uh, it will affect your acceleration and deceleration. So moving up the slope, your acceleration will be reduced. And your deceleration will be increased. I'm holding forward right now, but I'm still decelerating because, physics. All right, so the next concept is really simple, but I do want to touch on it quickly just so you guys are fully aware of what's going on. So the characters in this game have four different orientations they can be in. That's floor, left wall, right wall, and ceiling. Now, obviously, this is what we see all the time when we run up loops. So we'll just go ahead and run up this loop. And once we reach a certain angle, the sprite will change orientation, but the character uh, doesn't yet change his orientation to left wall until about here. And once you get here, the game sets a flag to stick the character to surfaces, and he'll actually start falling in that direction. Now, distinction here. The character is falling towards the wall, but that is not the same as gravity. Knuckles is still affected by downward gravity here. So if I let go of the direction or brake, once his speed goes down a certain amount, he'll actually detach from the wall and it'll reset his orientation back to floor because floor is just the default orientation. If we keep our movement speed high enough, it'll change his orientation here to ceiling, and he's actually falling upward while being pulled by gravity downward. And then, of course, this over here would be right wall, and we are accelerating downward in the same direction as gravity. So you see he breaks into his run animation. So you actually do gain additional speed by running down a wall like this. And you can see that if we go in the other direction, he'll just keep up that speed. So pretty simple concept. You'll see this everywhere in the game, but I just wanted to explain exactly what's going on. So four quadrants, floor, left wall, right wall, and ceiling. It's pretty simple, but yeah, it's a good thing to know. So I mentioned earlier that the max speed you can get on flat ground is 1536. However, this is not the actual speed cap in the game. In fact, running has no speed cap, but rolling does. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to use a bug to get inside this wall here. And I do have sprites on top turned on so you can see Tails when he's in the wall. Don't worry if you don't understand what's going on here. This is just the simplest way to showcase this concept. So right now, I'm holding forward. The game thinks he's running down a hill. And as you can see on the bottom left, on the rightmost column, his speed is above 10,000. And he'll actually keep gaining speed infinitely as long as there's nothing to obstruct his movement. Even going above 13,000 before he touches the bottom of the screen and dies. Now let's do this again, but this time we're actually going to go to the end of the level. We're going to slow him down a little bit until he gets closer to the end of the stage. And then jump, and now you can see here his speed is at 6851. If we keep holding forward, he'll just maintain that speed and actually outrun the camera. But if we hold down, let's just do that a little bit. Now, if we hold down, you can see on the left side, it says 4096. So the game just instantly sets his rolling to that value. And the camera catches up to him because the camera moves faster than the roll speed cap. Yeah, so that's pretty much how the speed cap works in this game. Running has no speed cap, rolling does. Next, I want to cover jumping. So this is a pretty simple concept. You guys are hopefully very familiar with it. I just have it here for completion's sake. So when we start our jump, we start at 1664 subpixels per frame moving upward. Sonic and Tails are identical. Knuckles starts at 1536 and he gets a lower jump height overall. So as we hold jump, we'll keep going up and steadily lose speed every frame as we move up, so as to give the illusion of gravity, right? And then once we start moving back downward, holding jump doesn't really do anything except for influencing uh, rebounds. So rebounds is basically whenever you bounce off a monitor or a badnik or a boss, you just get sent in the opposite direction that you hit them at. So if you jump into a boss from the side and below, like let's say you're moving upright, then you'll get bounced back down left. If you fall into a monitor from above, you'll just get bounced back upward. And if you hold jump, it'll influence how high up you go. You can even rebound off of it and then release jump in the middle of it and actually cut your height short by doing that. It gives you that extra bit of control. Um, the main detriment to jumping is really air drag. Now, I covered this a little bit in my other videos, but I want to explain a little bit more about what air drag is and um, how to avoid it when possible. So let's get a little bit of speed here. If I start running at my max speed or top speed on flat ground, 1536, I jump here. I hold jump, so I'm gaining as much vertical speed as possible. You can see I'm still at the same speed. But once I get to a certain value, my speed will actually start to decrease, even though I'm still holding jump. As I near the apex of the jump, my speed will just keep going back down. But as I start to descend, my horizontal speed goes back up because I'm still holding forward, so I'm still accelerating. And that's because I'm in a normal jump, which means I still maintain full control of the character. If you do a roll jump, then you would actually have to insta-shield in order to regain any speed. So as you can see here, I'm back to 1536, and if I stop holding forward, he actually just maintains the inertia and stays at that speed. If I do that again, but this time with a roll, so when I left the ground, I was at 1166. We can actually cut our jump short here, which will decrease our height. It'll trigger air drag sooner. And as you can see, the speed just plummets down. And then it stabilizes at 630. If we hold forward, it stays at 630. But if we use Insta Shield and then hold forward, we regain aerial control and we can continue to accelerate even before we land on the ground again. So to touch on something I mentioned in the spin dash video is about ceilings. So this is a low ceiling here. This is very convenient because if we spin dash and then jump here, keep jump held so we get a nice high jump, bump the ceiling before air drag triggers. And once we start moving down, we can let go of jump. Holding forward again does nothing here, but you do want to hold forward so that you don't decelerate when you land. And then of course, when you land, you still maintain the exact same speed of the spin dash. So that's one way of mitigating. I mentioned that in the spin dash video. You can mitigate air drag by doing that. There are some other ways of doing it. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. But for now, I just wanted to mention basics of jumping. Um, Obviously, if you do this with knuckles and you try and glide to regain your air control, it's not really going to help you very much because Knuckles' glide puts him at a fixed speed. So you're just going to lose all the speed from your spin dash. But yeah, that's jumping, very simple, but just wanted to make sure everything there was covered. Next, we have rolling. Now, rolling is a really interesting mechanic. It trades certain benefits for others and also gains some downsides. So, as you may know, when you roll, you gain an attack with which you can hit monitors and enemies. However, you also lose the ability to accelerate on the ground. In fact, your character will just steadily decelerate, and the only thing you can do is hold back to brake. And the brake is not as powerful as when running. The benefit here, though, is that when you roll, you actually decelerate at a slower rate than running. So running decelerates at 12 subpixels per frame, and rolling is exactly half that at 6. And we can use that to our benefit here. So we'll start at around this position. We'll just run down this hill. Now, when you run down hills, you gain speed because of gravity. Once we get to around here, you can see our speed is 1265. Now let's try that again from rolling at about the same position. Once we get like on this curvature, we'll just hold down to roll, and then after that we can just release. No direction other than braking does anything. And as you can see here, we're only halfway down the slope, and yet we've already surpassed the speed that we gained from running. And once we get here, we're almost at 2700 speed. So that's really, really good, right? Now, the problem, as we mentioned before, roll jumps take control away from you unless you use your aerial ability. And of course, rolls will steadily decelerate on flat ground. Um, and they'll definitely decelerate even more when going uphill. So how do we transition smoothly from a roll to a run state so that we can maintain the speed that we gained? Well, we can do that actually right here by using angles. So right at the start, this is what Tails does in his speed run. It just does a spin dash, and there's a nice convenient curvature right here. Once we touch the right angle, we can actually just jump from it. And jumping from angles influences your trajectory. In this case, we gain 4061 speed or subpixels per frame, and we gain no upward momentum whatsoever. So air drag never takes effect. At this point, we don't even have to hold anything. We can just let it rock. And I'm actually going to do a fly here because due to the way subpixels work from the start, if I just land, I'll just get stopped cold. And then before I land, I make sure I'm holding forward so that I can accelerate and maintain my speed from the run. And then we have another downward slope, so we'll just jump here, or roll rather. And if I jump from here, I'll get the same thing. No upward momentum. Uh, it'll propel me forward, and I'll gain additional speed. Actually, if you look on the bottom left, 4516 is what I would get if I jumped here. But if I just wait a little bit longer, this is not faster, I just want to show it off. If I jump from here, he'll actually just land straight away. Slightly slower than jumping from higher up, but it is useful to know that you can do that. And then we can just carry that run speed all the way to over here. And then of course things change. Now, going back to what I mentioned before about rolling uphill, let's actually show that off. So if I stand like about here and I run up this slope, every frame, as you can see on the bottom, it says 1377 and then 1368 and then 1359. I'm actually losing about 9 subpixels per frame. But he does eventually get all the way up here. With rolling, however, significant difference. He doesn't even make it all the way up there and just slides back down. So yeah, it is very important to know that when you're going uphill, rolling makes you decelerate faster than if you were running. Now, there is something about this that is a little deceptive. So I need to go somewhere else to explain that further. So over here we have a few different elements. One, we have a spring, a red spring, gives us a ton of speed. We have an upward slope here that gives us a 16-degree angle. We have this curve here, and then we have a long wall followed by a loop, followed by a downward slope. So there are a bunch of things going on here. So to follow up on what I mentioned about rolling up and downhill, there's actually a strat here with Knuckles that takes advantage of this fact. So under normal circumstances, you might think, oh, well, if I just keep running up, um, I'll gain the most amount of speed because rolling will decelerate me faster going upwards. And therefore, that's not what I want to do. So if we just do that and just hold forward the entire way, normally once you get to about here, you would want to jump. Unfortunately, Knuckles doesn't clear the gap. Normally, what you'd want to do is actually land on this yellow spring right here. Now, if we were to go back and just roll, and then from here jump, we actually hit the spring very easily without any effort whatsoever. So what's going on here? I thought, rolling uphill, you go slower. I thought it was bad. Well, yeah, it is actually slower when you're going upwards. However, once you change orientation to be running on a wall, uh, things change. The game makes you start falling towards the wall. And while you're running up this wall, you decrease 32 subpixels, decelerate rather, 32 subpixels per frame. So right now we're at 3688, and it goes to 3656. That's 32 subpixels per frame. However, if we roll, it'll actually decrease by 26 instead because we're going upwards on a wall. This is not the same thing as going up a slope in which you'll decrease um, less. Remember, it was in launch base, it was only on that particular slope, it was 9 pixels per frame when I was running up the slope, not 32 like this wall right here. So from 3560, it goes to 3534. So that's 26. So we're actually maintaining better speed by rolling up the wall than if we were to run up the wall. And that's just something that is uh, different about the orientation of running on a wall as opposed to running up a slope. Remember, when you run up a slope, you're still not really falling in the direction of the slope. When you run up a wall, your character is falling towards the wall while being pulled downward by gravity. So it is a little weird, it's a little deceptive, but basically the concept is when you hit this, you want to run up this slope, and then once you get to about here, you want to roll. And then once you do that, you jump and boom. Now you can just roll up the slope and make that jump anyway, but the idea is that you want to make sure you're running up the slope because you'll be able to maintain your full speed from that as opposed to decelerating more with the roll. So that was the one little thing that could be a little confusing when it comes to rolling upwards. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but when you understand what's going on, it really does make sense. So all you really have to know is when you're going uphill, try to run. When you're going up a wall, try to roll. All right, so now that we've covered rolling, I actually want to explore a little bit more about angles. Now, angles are everywhere in the game, and they affect more than just roll jumps. Um, if you look at the bottommost value, it says 0 right now. That's because I'm on flat ground. But if I come over here, it'll say -4. Now, angles only ever change by multiples of 2. So you can't ever have like a 1-degree angle. It's not gonna ever be a thing in this game. You'll have 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. Um, right here, if I jump straight upward without holding a direction, my character will move to the left. Right now, it says -6. If I jump again, he'll move to the left even more. And -12, yet still, he'll move even more. So that's how angles affect your jump trajectory. Now, this can be a detriment at times. I'm sure a lot of you have tried this before, where you're trying to jump up a slope and you just get bounced back and you can't get up there. And this was definitely something that a lot of people struggled with in Sonic 1 before the spin dash was invented. Um, but we're going to learn how to use angles to our advantage. So when we come over here, we have a nice little slope, curved slope here. And as you can see, the angles, once it gets steep enough, it actually forces the character back down. Right here is at plus 16. And once I get to about 20 or so, it just doesn't like that and it makes him go back down. As you can see, it also affects our acceleration. So I'm holding left and it's actually really hard to climb up. It's even here, like it doesn't really look like it should be difficult, but it actually is. If I come over here, it slows down my acceleration considerably until I get to the flat ground where I can actually start to pick up speed. Um, if I go downward, of course, we gain speed even more. That's how running downhill and rolling downhill giving you speed works because of the angles. The steeper the angle, the more speed you're going to get going in that downward direction. Um, however, sometimes we don't want to spin dash or run up a wall. Sometimes we just want to jump because if we do a spin dash, for example, I can't fly. I can't fly. If we just run up the wall, then I can't fly unless I jump off, and then my angle is far too steep. Once I'm running on this wall, you can see it's 64. That's actually pretty steep. When I jump off, it's going to propel me all the way to the side. However, let's just gain some speed here. Now, if we jump from here, we're going to get a trajectory based on the angle of the ground. Right now it's at plus 32, so let's see what that gives us. That's pretty much as high as that goes from the plus 32. It wasn't really that great, honestly. We want a lot more height. So let's go a bit steeper. So now we have plus 44. Let's see what that gives us. Eh, not much better, right? So it's looking like our hopes of reaching the top is not going to happen. Now we jump from here. We got a bit more height from that. All right, so it went from 44 to 40 back to 44. Let's try here. Nah, so you can see there's a pattern going on here. So what can we do about this? Well, let's actually gain some speed to begin with. Because we were just getting our normal run speed plus some additional speed from the slope. So let's actually get the spin dash going and have tremendous speed going into the slope. So now let's try 44. See what that gives us. Now we actually get all the way up here. Big difference, huge difference right there. And of course, this is a road jump, so we will need to fly to regain some control, and then we can just land up here. So where can this be applied? All over the place, everywhere in the game, pretty much. In fact, right here, if I take this booster and roll down this hill, let's do that again. We'll roll down without jumping off too early. We'll jump off there, come here. As you can see, there's a curve here, and this curve will affect our jump. So let's jump from right here and see what we get. That killed all of our speed. So as you can see, if you jump from the wrong part of it, uh, you'll actually come right here and bump that, and it'll get treated as a wall, and it'll kill all your speed. So let's try this again. Jump from there, and that was a pitiful jump. We got nothing from that. So let's try it again. How about here? Boom, perfect. So we don't get stopped, we don't get air drag, we bump the ceiling, we can do our fly, and maintain so much speed going into this area right here. So that's one really good example of how you can use curvatures and slopes and the angles on the ground to affect your jump trajectory. You can gain and maintain tons of speed and tons of height if you jump from the proper parts of the ground. Now, mind you, it's very easy to see in a zone like this the curvature of the ground, and you can kind of gauge the angles just by looking at it. However, there are some zones like Mushroom Hill and Lava Reef where the graphics of the terrain don't exactly match the angles of the ground, so you kind of have to get a feel for it. I recommend using background references and such to know where to jump. But that's pretty much the gist of angles. You can gain a lot of height and speed from them if you know where to jump, and make sure you combine, standing jumps and rolling jumps in the proper way. And yeah, you can just basically soar through the air and just fly like a rocket through the stages by doing this properly. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the horizontal control lock. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't know exists, and some people may know how to work around it just by intuition or feeling it out. Um, the horizontal control lock is basically a way for the game to remove control from your character horizontally only. You can still jump and roll and such. Um, Under certain circumstances, usually with steep slopes. So if I just run up this slope, obviously Sonic is not running fast enough to go up. So the game counteracts that momentum. And as you can see on the bottom, there's a new icon. It's red, blue, and yellow, and it says 28. The maximum is 30 frames. So in these frames, holding a direction does absolutely nothing. If I hold left, Sonic does not turn left at all until the move lock ends, and then I can actually start facing left. If I jump at the wall and hold inward, the momentum is just going to push them more towards the left, and there triggers uh, the move lock because it's a steep angle. I'm at 44. If I keep holding inward, I won't get a chance to break until after it ends, and right around there is when it actually lets me break, and I wind up being in about this position right here. Now, Uh, interesting thing to know about this is that if you jump at this and don't hold a direction until the angle is small enough, you can actually break sooner. So you'll be in about this position here instead of all the way over there on the left. So just release to neutral and then brake after you are not on such a steep angle. And you can actually have better control of your character by not triggering the move lock. There are some other things to know about this, like for example, this spring right here. If you hit the spring and hold inward towards the wall, it doesn't actually trigger the move lock in this particular case. So you can just start braking right away. You'll go a bit further because you just hit a red spring, so it gives you a lot of speed, but you can just hold towards the wall, and in this case, releasing to neutral does not actually benefit you. So let's go ahead and check out another example here. So this spring over here will also give us a move lock. Once we touch it, now it'll say 14, but it's actually 15. There's something weird about the Lewis script. Sometimes it'll say 15, sometimes it'll say 14 if you hit it on the ground. I think it's just a bug with the Lewis script. I'm not sure, but it is 15 frames. If I'm holding inward, holding right towards the spring, it's not gonna let me brake. I'm sure you guys have noticed this many times before. You know, you hit a spring, you try to brake because you accidentally hit it, but the game doesn't let you brake immediately. Now you know why. This is exactly why the the game doesn't let you brake. If I jump into it, it will say 15 frames, um, and it does not count down until I land, and that's very important. Whenever you trigger the move lock, it will remain frozen if you're in the air. So if I jump and hit this spring, it's actually going to delay when I can get my brake because I'm still in the air. And then once I'm on the ground, it'll count down. So let's say another example of where this happens. So let's take a look at Knuckles here. Knuckles actually gets this move lock when he glides and then lands. As you can see there, it's about the same amount of time. And you can still jump during this time. But as you see here, when I jump with him, it stays frozen at 13 until I land. And then it goes back down. And that's pretty important to know because if you do something, let's say you do that and then you try to jump and then you're moving in this direction and then you try to hold left for some reason, Knuckles is going to keep moving to the right. You can see this here where I'm holding left and he's actually just moonwalking because of the control lock. Of course, if I land first and then hold left, he doesn't change direction. He just keeps moving towards the right. And then once it ends, the game lets me brake. So that's the horizontal control lock. It freezes when you're in the air. It does apply to Knuckles when he lands from his glide. And steep slopes are basically the enemy. When you run up a wall like this and you detach from it, whether you're running or rolling, it will always give you 30 frames of move lock. Always. So bear that in mind as you do this. You will not be able to control your character for a full half a second. That's actually pretty bad, but yeah, now you guys know about the move lock. And now I would like to show you a few clips of all these things put into play throughout different areas of the game.